Hello and welcome to the special edition of World Today from Colombo, Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just landed in Colombo and he was welcomed by the Indian community here, by the Tamil community here. There's also many excited Sri Lankans waiting at Taj Samudra, the hotel where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is staying. We will be going across to my colleague Nagarjun Dwarkanath, who's also here in Colombo, reporting with me on what that entire colour of Prime Minister's welcome looked like. But before that, there are a few important things that are going to happen over here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the first foreign leader visiting on an official visit to Colombo after President Dissanayake took over. There are many key agreements that are going to be signed in information technology, pharmaceutical, energy cooperation, the launching of a solar power plant, but one of the key elements is going to be a defense agreement between India and Sri Lanka. Let's now go across to the report Nagarjun filed with people waiting to welcome Prime Minister Modi.
Well, this is the second time that the Prime Minister would be visiting the IPKF monument or the memorial. He did visit once in 2015 as soon as he took oath in 2014. In his first trip as Prime Minister to Sri Lanka, he did visit the IPKF. It's also posturing about what India has done to the country here, what India is capable of, sending the forces for peacekeeping mission, fighting militancy, fighting civil war, remembering the soldiers. This monument memorial was built in 2008. This is the first time that the Prime Minister had gone to the memorial in 2015. It's also a messaging to the people back home and also the military armed forces that the Prime Minister is solidly with you and the country respects the sacrifices that the men in the Indian Army have done.
And Nagarjun Dwarkanath continues to be with me. Naga, excited people over there I could see. Tell me, what are the expectations of the people from Sri Lanka, particularly the Tamil community, when it comes to the Indian Premier?
Well, the Prime Minister just reached the hotel here a few minutes back and the Indian crowd embraced this reception, warmly welcomed him with Indian flags, Sri Lankan flags. Many Tamilians had come to see him. They are just hoping that he puts out a message for them also. It's not just something credible they're looking at or solid that they're looking at. His presence gives them some hope is what many people said. There were people from all walks of lives, doctors, lawyers, also people who have settled here. Not just that, Geeta, but also senior citizens who were just waiting in the queue for 4 hours, trying to touch the Prime Minister, trying to seek his attention and also give out a poster or a drawing. All that happened. Small kids to senior citizens stood in the queue waiting for the Prime Minister, and most of them were delighted to see the Prime Minister.
कठपुतली शो है, आप देख रहे हैं, पपेट शो, जहाँ
After completing a successful BIMSTEC summit in Bangkok, Thailand, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed and is in Colombo for a 3-day visit to Sri Lanka. A lot on the agenda, but let's begin with what the two leaders are going to do. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Dissanayake will travel together to the historic city of Anuradhapura, where they will pay their respects at the Mahabodhi temple. He will visit Peacekeeping Monument tomorrow to pay respects to the soldiers who lost their lives between 1987 and 1990. Prime Minister Modi is also expected to raise the issue of fishermen with the Sri Lankan leadership. The two leaders will also witness the virtual groundbreaking of the Sampur Solar Energy Project. They will jointly inaugurate two India-assisted projects. This will be Prime Minister Modi's first visit after President Anuradhapura Dissanayake assumed office last year. It will also be a follow-up to the Sri Lankan President's state visit to India in December last year.
We are, after all, civilizational twins. So to that extent, this is a very natural thing to happen, and it's very symbolic and positive. This visit, the fourth visit of Sri Narendra Modi, could be history defining, because then it could really determine the economic closeness between two civilizational twins. No, I don't think so. I mean, see, China is a reality for the world. China is there everywhere. China is in India too. I mean, I was looking at some data saying that India is actually one of the biggest, one of India's biggest bilateral trade partners is actually China.
He's the first foreign leader to come to Sri Lanka after the new president has taken over power. He was also the first, he went to India on his first foreign trip in December last year. So it is, in that sense, a very, very important visit. We are, as you would recall, we had a very good outcome in December 2024. So we are taking forward the elements of that understanding.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting the Indian Peacekeeping Force monument right behind me. He would be visiting tomorrow to pay respects to the soldiers who have lost their life battling here in Sri Lanka. In 1987 to 1990, soldiers from India fought their battle here to curb the militancy, to end the civil war inside Sri Lanka. Over 1,000 people, or the 1,000 soldiers, had lost their lives battling here in the Sri Lankan soil. As a respect to them, as a memory to them, in 2008 this monument was built. This is not the first time that the Prime Minister is visiting this monument, paying respects to the soldiers of Indian Army. Back in 2015, when Sri Lankan visit was happening from the Prime Minister's end, from the Indian government end, Narendra Modi did visit this place in 2015 and pay respects as well. This is the second time that he would be doing here. He's on a 3-day visit to Sri Lanka. Tomorrow he would be holding diplomatic talks with the President of Sri Lanka, and in the evening he would be visiting this monument and paying respects to the soldiers of the Indian Army who have lost their lives. Nagarjun Dwarkanath for India Today.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Anuradhapura on Sunday morning to pay homage to Jai Shri Mahabodhi. It is a very significant visit, a World Heritage Site. Anuradhapura is known as the ancient city of, or the ancient capital city of Sri Lanka. In fact, Emperor Ashoka had sent his 2 children with the sapling from the main Mahabodhi tree from Bodh Gaya, and that was planted here in Anuradhapura. And today we will be looking at how India and Sri Lanka are coming together, and with Prime Minister's visit, an enhancement of those ties. In fact, Anuradhapura was destroyed by the Chola dynasty during an invasion, and today India is looking to rebuild that city economically and culturally.
A decade ago, the Prime Minister of India in his first term was in Anuradhapura, the ancient city of Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Modi paid homage at the Sri Mahabodhi tree in Anuradhapura's Mahamevna Gardens. This ancient tree was the sapling of the Bodhi tree under which Buddha attained enlightenment in Bodh Gaya. It was brought to Anuradhapura by Mauryan Emperor Ashoka's daughter, Sanghamitra, in the 3rd century BC. Her brother, Mahendra, was sent with a Buddhist delegation by their father to Lanka. Anuradhapura was then the capital city of the island country. According to traditional Sri Lankan chronicles such as the Mahavamsa and the Deepavamsa, the then king of Anuradhapura, Devanampiya Tissa, received sermons from Mahendra and converted to Buddhism, and so did his people. The city of Anuradhapura was established a couple of centuries before this by a banished prince of Indian origin. It was named after one of his ministers, Anuradha. It was initially called Anuradhagrama. This older name was also mentioned in the work of ancient Greek and Roman scholars. Anuradhapura served as the capital of successive Lankan kingdoms for centuries till the destructive invasion of Chola kings Raja I and his son Rajendra I. Over the next centuries till the British colonial rule, Anuradhapura lost its glory as the capital of Sri Lanka. Nearly 205 kilometers from Colombo in the north-central plain of Sri Lanka, Anuradhapura today is a World UNESCO Heritage Site and the capital city of the province by the historic Malwatu Oya River. The Indian Prime Minister will be back again in this ancient city a decade later to pay homage to the ancient Bodhi tree that planted Buddhism in the island nation. Bureau Report, India Today.
A dwindling Sri Lankan economy has been struggling ever since it announced bankruptcy in the year 2022. With Donald Trump slapping tariffs worth 44% on exports from Sri Lanka, they fear that business is going to look very bad for the country. And at such a time, Sri Lanka is also going to have to start repaying its IMF debt starting 2028. And it is looking at its neighbor and ally India for help.
US President Donald Trump slapped Sri Lanka with a 44% tariff on exports. The island country, struggling with its economy, is put in a tight spot.
This will be implemented on April 9th. Before that, we will start discussions to see whether there is a possibility to reduce the tariffs because we are in a very special situation. Although we have a very favorable trade balance, we are tied up with an IMF program and the country has been stabilized after an economic crisis.
Sri Lanka declared bankruptcy and entered an agreement with the International Monetary Fund in 2022. Debt repayments are due to start in 2028. Key Lankan industries in a structured IMF recovery program, such as garment, rubber, and some agricultural categories, may get hit hard by Trump's tariffs.
I would consider it serious because we are still at the tail end of the stabilization process, and our debt repayment will start in 2028, and the apparel industry, the rubber industry, and some of the agricultural products were the main categories that we were looking for expanding. And out of our exports, about 20% to 25% is for the US markets. So at the early stages, having this impact of 44% tariff on most of these products is definitely going to impact the growth of those sectors so as for our exports, which will impact our dollar inflow. So I would rate it quite serious.
The US market accounts for 20 to 25% of all Sri Lankans' exports, and the dollar does boost its ailing economy.
Most likely, some of the apparel companies will thinking about shifting their orders to other parts of the world because it's the comparative tariff that matters. They have also imposed tariffs on China, Bangladesh. So if Bangladesh's tariff rates are comparatively lower than us, they have an advantage through shifting the orders to Bangladesh instead of manufacturing it here or to Africa or wherever. So that challenge is there, that risk is there on one side. The other challenge is more with the consumption shrink in the US because we are not exporting critical or very essential products to the US market. So with the consumption shrink, anyway we will get affected.
India has been a constant support for Sri Lanka. The overall Indian credit assistance to Sri Lanka amounts to over $7 billion, including concessional loans, deferment of payment, and swap agreements. India's grant assistance to Sri Lanka currently stands at around $780 million, which includes completed projects worth $390 million, ongoing projects worth over $210 million, and another $178 million worth of projects in the pipeline.
We always see India as a big brother to Sri Lanka. We can never forget the support India extended to Sri Lanka during the crisis. And I would also like to remember that Indian government, beyond what they can do, they did for Sri Lanka.
Prime Minister Modi's current visit will further strengthen ties between the two countries to help rebuild Sri Lankan economy amidst Trump's global trade war. With Nagarjun Dwarikanath, Bureau Report, India Today.
Right before the Sri Lanka visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Thailand, in Bangkok, for the BIMSTEC summit, where the leaders of the regional bloc adopted Bangkok Vision 2030. He also met with leaders on the sidelines of BIMSTEC and did raise the issue of Sheikh Hasina and minority persecution with the Bangladeshi leadership. Amid strained ties between India and Bangladesh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a meeting with Bangladesh's chief advisor, Mohammad Yunus, in Thailand. The first since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina regime last August. The two leaders engaged in a firm handshake before sitting down for bilateral talks. Ministry of External Affairs briefed the media on Modi-Yunus meeting, saying that the talks happened on the lines of having stronger ties between neighboring nations. Mainly, Prime Minister Modi raised the issue of attack on Indian minorities in Bangladesh, as also on Hindus of Bangladesh, and demanded a strict security for them. India also demanded a probe against minority persecution and attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh. Mohammad Yunus also presented a portrait to Prime Minister Modi of him presenting a gold medal to Yunus at the 102nd Indian Science Congress in 2015. Prime Minister Modi also held bilateral talks with Thailand Prime Minister Shinawatra and Myanmar leader General Aung Liang.
माइनॉरिटीज़ की, अल्पसंख्यकों की जो वहाँ पे हालत है और इस विषय को लेके बातचीत में जो दोनों लीडर्स के बीच में हुई, जैसा मैंने अपने रिमार्क्स में कहा, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इस मुद्दे को खुल के सामने रखा। इसके बारे में हमारी गहरी चिंता उन्होंने जताई और इसका असर जो बाकी समाज पे होता है उसके बारे में प्रोफेसर यूनुस को अवगत कराया और उन्होंने अपनी आशा जताई कि आखिरकार ये जो मुद्दा है इसकी जो जिम्मेदारी है वो बांग्लादेश सरकार की है और उन्होंने आशा जताई कि बांग्लादेश सरकार इस विषय पे अपनी जिम्मेदारियों पे खरी उतरेगी और इन चीज़ों को आगे इनकी जांच करेगी। कोई भी डेमोक्रेसी हो उसमें रेगुलर और इंक्लूसिव इलेक्शंस उसका एक बहुत ही अहम हिस्सा होते हैं और हमने प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इसके बारे में भी अपनी सोच प्रोफेसर यूनुस से साझा की और आशा जताई कि हम आगे चलते एक डेमोक्रेटिक, इंक्लूसिव और स्टेबल बांग्लादेश देखेंगे और उसमें इलेक्शंस का अपना एक रोल होता है, वो सब जानते हैं। कि जहाँ तक शेख हसीना का सवाल है और उनके सिलसिले में जो बांग्लादेश की ओर से एक निवेदन आया है, मैं इसके बारे में इस समय पे इसके बारे में बातचीत हुई थी और जो हमारे स्पोक्स पर्सन हैं उन्होंने पहले ही इसके बारे में आपको अवगत किया है कि हमारे पास इस मुद्दे पे एक निवेदन आया है। इस समय इस विषय पे कुछ और कहना मेरे लिए उचित नहीं होगा।